Artem and Olga Ivanovna's apartment was small, cramped, like a shoebox. A lonely room with faded wallpaper, a kitchen that barely fit a table to a couple of stools, and a bathroom with peeling tiles. An old sofa creaked in the corner of the window, their shared bed for years. Outside the window, the wind was rustling, chasing scraps of packages around the yard, and inside it smelled of boiled potatoes and slightly rancid sunflower oil. They lived poorly, with only their grandmother's pension and Artyom's rare earnings from income. He had just turned 18, she was 65. And yet there was a strange warmth in this poverty. Olga Ivanovna was everything to Artyom. His mother, her adopted daughter, ran away many years ago, had a son from an unknown man, left a bundle on the doorstep and disappeared. Nobody asked about Artyom's father, and why. Although they were not related by blood, they warmly called each other grandmother and grandson. His grandmother raised him alone, and he became her meaning, her light in this gray life. And for him, she is the only person who has not abandoned. They were close as friends, despite the age difference. The evening dragged on lazily. Artyom was sitting at a rickety table, leafing through a textbook on Avtotal. He studied at a technical school, tried to keep up. He was about 6 feet tall, thin, but strong, with a simple face and dark eyes that read thoughtfulness. He was dressed in old jeans and a worn t-shirt, on his feet worn sneakers. There were almost no friends. Poverty and modesty scared off peers. The girls avoided him too. He didn't know how to approach them himself. Olga Ivanovna was busy in the kitchen, rattling pots. She was a heavy, working woman. I have worked at the factory all my life, and it has left its traces. His hands are rough, with calluses rubbed, his face is wrinkled, as if cut with a knife. Gray hair, cropped short, stuck out in different directions, and moles were visible on the body under a pale nightgown. Curvy shapes made her figure noticeable, even in loose clothes. She was tired of life, but she held on for Artem's sake. Artemka, the potatoes are ready. Go eat while it's hot. She called, wiping her hands on her apron. Her voice was low, a little husky, but warm. Now, Grandma, I'll just finish it, he replied without looking up from the book. The pencil in his hand was scribbling in the margins. What are you writing there? Your cars again. Olga Ivanovna came out of the kitchen, carrying a plate of steaming potatoes and a piece of bacon. Come on, eat, otherwise you're as thin as a chip. Who's going to marry you like that? Artyom grunted, closed his textbook, and reached for his plate. No one will take it. I'm not a girl. And I don't need it, he said, smiling out of the corner of his mouth. I live with you and it's okay. What a fool, she muttered, but her eyes softened. She sat down opposite him, propping her chin on her hand. Young, it is necessary to live, and not to sour with an old grandmother. You're not old, he objected, quietly looking at his plate. And we don't turn sour. Olga Ivanovna only sighed, shaking her head. They fell silent, hearing the wind howling outside the window and the sofa creaking when one of them moved. After dinner, Artem cleaned up the dishes, and Grandma went to change. She changed clothes right in the room. There was nothing to be ashamed of, everything was his own. Artyom tried not to look, but out of the corner of his eye he sometimes saw too much and immediately looked away, feeling the blood rush to his cheeks. Go to bed already, it's late. She threw it, plopping down on the sofa. The springs creaked pitifully. Yes, now, he muttered, turning off the light. The room was plunged into semi-darkness, Only the lantern outside the window threw yellow stripes on the ceiling. They lay down side by side, as always. The blanket was thin, like the nightgown, and Artyom felt the warmth of her body, heard her breathing. She tossed and turned, getting comfortable. He clenched his fists under the blanket and stared at the ceiling. My heart was pounding faster than I would have liked. The thoughts that he had been chasing during the day crept into his head. Shameful, hot, forbidden. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't help himself. Artyom, why aren't you sleeping? Suddenly she asked, turning to him sleepily. Her voice snapped him out of his stupor. Just like that. It's just hot, he lied, looking away. He's hot, she grumbled. Throw off the blanket if it's hot, or open the window, otherwise you sniff like a cat. Everything's fine, go to sleep, he muttered, pulling the blanket higher. Olga Ivanovna chuckled and turned away. Soon her breathing became even and she fell asleep. And Artyom lay looking into the darkness and tried not to think about what he saw, what he felt. At night, when she slept soundly or went to the market, he imagined her. Shame burned him, but he couldn't stop. It was their life, cramped, poor, but so dear that he did not know how to get out of it. A month has passed since the evening when Artyom Olga Ivanovna had dinner with potatoes and bacon at a shaky table. Life went on as usual. He went to college, worked part-time. She fussed around the house as best she could. But something has changed. Olga Ivanovna began to squint more often, to lose her eyes, as if dust got into them. At first, Artyom did not pay attention, but you never know the age. But then she started stumbling from the stool, dropping spoons and confusing salt with sugar. He noticed how she brought the labels on the cans close to her face, frowned, and then waved away. Yes, nonsense. My eyes are just tired. Grandma, can I go to the doctor? He asked one morning, when she nearly knocked over the kettle while pouring boiling water. What is it, a doctor? She waved it away, but her voice faltered. Old age, Artemka. You can't cure her. Don't make it up, go, he insisted, looking at her seriously. I'll go with you if anything. She muttered something unintelligible, but after a couple of days, she agreed. Artyom took time off from classes, and they went to the clinic. Old, with peeling paint on the walls, and the smell of bleach in the corridors. The queue was long, but he waited patiently while Grandma sat next to him, nervously tugging at the edges of the handkerchief. Finally they were called. In the ophthalmologist's office of an elderly man with a tired face, Olga Ivanovna sat down on a chair. And Artyom remained at the door with his arms crossed. The doctor shone a flashlight into her eyes for a long time, forcing her to read the letters on the table, frowned, wrote something down. She answered briefly, but her voice betrayed alarm. Well, doctor, will you at least prescribe glasses? She asked, trying to make a joke, but it turned out to be strained. The doctor put down his pen, took off his glasses, and looked at her directly. Olga Ivanovna, it's not about the glasses. You have cataracts in both eyes, and a neglected one. Vision drops very quickly. If nothing is done, then in a year or two you will go completely blind. The words fell like stones. Artyom felt a chill run down his spine. Olga Ivanovna froze, then coughed, as if chasing away a lump in her throat. It's like that. Her voice broke completely. And what to do? The operation is necessary, the doctor calmly replied, replacement of the lens. But, alas, we do not make such. The equipment is old, and there are no specialists in general. It is necessary to go abroad to a good clinic, in Germany, for example, or at least to Poland. And how much does it cost? Artyom asked, stepping forward. His voice was firm, but his insides tightened. The doctor sighed, as if he didn't want to answer. On average, 5,000 to 7,000 euros, maybe more with an expensive examination. We can't find that kind of money, and there are queues for free treatment for 10 years ahead. Olga Ivanovna clenched the handkerchief in her fist, her lips trembled. Artyom looked at the doctor, then at her, and didn't know what to say. 7,000 euros. They have all the furniture in the apartment, not even 100, and there are such sums here. Thank you, doctor, she said softly, getting up. Come on, Artyom. They went out in silence. It was cold outside. The wind was driving dry leaves on the asphalt. Olga Ivanovna walked slowly, leaning on his arm. He could feel her shivering, either from the cold or from fear. At home, she sat on the sofa and stared at the wall. Artyom put the kettle on, but his hands were shaking when he took out the mugs. Grandma, why are you silent? He asked, sitting down next to me. We'll figure something out. Well, what can you think of here? Her voice was muffled, almost alien. 7,000. Yes, we have never had such money in our entire life. And it won't. I'll go blind, Artemka. That's it. Don't say that, he raised his voice without expecting it. You won't go blind. I'll find a better job. We'll dig it up. Dig up. She smiled bitterly as she turned to him. Her eyes were red, but there were no tears. Are you going to the factory? Or steal? It's not hundreds, not even thousands. Yura, Artem, where did we get this? I don't know yet. He jumped up, walked around the room. But I won't let you go blind, do you hear? I'll plow day and night if I have to. And what about me? And will I become your belly? She slammed her palm on the sofa, and her voice broke into a scream. A blind old woman who needs to be looked after. I won't be able to cook, I won't be able to clean, and I won't even go to the toilet. And you're young, you need to live, and not take out the pots for me. Stop it? He turned around, his eyes glistening with anger and pain. You're not a burden to me, and you never will be. You've been pulling me all my life, and now I'm going to leave you or what? I'd rather die than leave you alone. Olga Ivanovna fell silent, looking at him, then turned away, slouched. The silence hung heavy, like a damp fog. The kettle whistled, but no one even moved to turn it off. How am I going to live? She whispered at last, without eyes. It's like being dead. You're not dead. Artyom sat down next to her and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, rough firm work. And I'm with you. I'll help. I'll learn how to cook, clean, whatever. You just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. You're stupid. She shook her head, but her voice softened. Where will you learn to cook? You can't break an egg without a shell in a frying pan. I'll learn, he smiled weakly. I'm already peeling potatoes, it's fine. And then I'll cook soup and cutlets. Just don't give up, Grandma, we'll manage. She looked at him for a long time. There was something new in her eyes, a mixture of fear, fatigue, and gratitude. Then she squeezed his hand back. All right, Artemka, all right, she said quietly. Just don't leave me, do you hear? If anything. Never, he snapped, you know me. They sat like that for a long time, until the kettle cooled down and it got dark outside the window. Olga Ivanovna thought about how quickly life can collapse when the eyes go out. Artem was thinking about where to get the money, how to save her. And the old sofa kept creaking under them, as if reminding them that they were still together. Bye. Several months have passed since the day when the doctor pronounced a verdict on Olga Ivanovna's eyes. Her eyesight was getting worse every day. Now she saw only blurred spots, shadows, and outlines. The world turned into a muddy blob, and she increasingly sat on the couch, afraid to even get up once again. But she didn't want to give up. Artem took over almost the entire house. Cleaned, washed, went grocery shopping. Their small apartment has become a little cleaner. He vacuumed with an old vacuum cleaner, wiped the dust, washed the floors, albeit clumsily. Olga Ivanovna, despite her blindness, tried to teach him to cook. Artemka, chop the onion finely, not cubes, like you. She grumbled, sitting at the table. Her voice was weak, but commanding. And throw the potatoes into the soup when the water boils, and not before. Yes, I understand, Grandma, he answered, standing at the stove with a knife in his hands. The oil was sizzling in the pan, and he was trying not to cut his fingers. Just don't get up. I'm on my own. Himself, him. She shook her head. Your soup will come out like slop if you don't listen. He just grinned. His cooking was so-so. But he tried. Borscht came out pale, the cutlets crooked, but they ate potatoes with lard every day, and she praised him, even though she grumbled. Olga Ivanovna was still trying to change clothes by herself, groping for clothes in the closet, but more often she asked Artem to help. Artem, find me a blue jacket, the one with buttons, she said, standing by the sofa in one nightgown. And a black skirt, which is long. He rummaged in the closet, took out things, and handed them to her. Sometimes she changed clothes right in the room, without being shy. She still almost didn't see his reaction. And there was a reaction. Although he tried not to look openly, only silhouettes caught in his peripheral vision, but it was enough. He didn't have any girls, and from where? All the time was spent on studying and part-time work. But his body reacted instantly. The heat flooded up to the ears, and the pants became tight. He turned away, muttered something about going to wash the dishes, and went to the toilet. There, locking the door, he let off steam, gritting his teeth with shame and relief. But one day everything changed. It was evening, cold and damp. Olga Ivanovna was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with the edge of the blanket. Her face was tense. Artem, she began quietly, as if hesitating, I need to wash, and I'm afraid to climb into the bath. If I fall again, I'll break my head. And then what? He froze, holding the textbook in his hands, looked at her, then looked away. Well, let me help, he said, trying to sound calm. I'll pour you some water, I'll support you. She nodded, but it was obvious how uncomfortable she was. They went into the bathroom, cramped, with rusty spots on the Yamel. Artyom turned on the water, waited until the tub was filled. Olga Ivanovna was standing nearby, holding onto the wall. You turn away for now, or something, she asked, her voice trembling. I'm going to undress. He nodded and turned back to the sink. I could hear the fabric rustling, how she was breathing heavily. I'm sorry, Artemka, she suddenly said softly. It shouldn't be like this. I make the old woman wash. Don't talk nonsense, he snapped. You've been washing me all my life, now I can wash you. What's the big deal, after all? Just don't look at me, Artyom, she muttered. I'm old, ugly. You're normal, he muttered, still not daring to turn around. Nevertheless, the forced procedure was successful. He took her to her room, helped her to lie down. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, turned away to the wall, and he, throwing a towel on a chair, silently went to the toilet. He closed the door, panting from a mixture of shame, excitement, and fatigue. When he returned, she was lying quietly, but not asleep. Artyom, she called without turning around, don't be mad at me, okay? I know it's hard for you to study, work, and mess with me. And you're young, you should live. I'm not mad, he replied, sitting down on the edge of the sofa. And it's not hard for me. You, most importantly, don't think anything. She sighed. You're a good guy. And I'm old, but I'm not stupid. I understand what you have. Needs. Is it difficult for you with me like this? He froze, feeling the heat flood his face. Did she know or guess? He didn't answer, just muttered, Sleep, Grandma, tomorrow we'll cook soup. She chuckled, but didn't say anything else. They lay down as always, side by side. The sofa creaked, the blanket rustled. Artyom lay looking at the ceiling, but he thought about how closely their lives were intertwined. It's too crowded for him to stop it. Life in the small apartment flowed on as usual, but something in it has changed. Olga Ivanovna was almost blind. Now she could distinguish only light and darkness, and vague silhouettes. The world had turned into a muddy blur, and she was increasingly sitting on the couch, afraid to get up once again. But she didn't want to give up. Artem took over almost the entire house. I cooked, cleaned, helped her get dressed, washed her. They are used to this close dependence. But she was leaving a trail. Not only in their words, but also in silence, in casual touches, in the way their bodies were increasingly close to each other. The morning started the same way. Artyom got up first, rattled pots in the kitchen, cooked potatoes or fried eggs. Olga Ivanovna was sitting on the sofa, listening to the radio, old, with a hissing sound. She taught him to cook, even though she herself had not seen the stove. "Artem, don't spare the butter, otherwise the scrambled eggs will stick," she said, stretching her neck towards the kitchen. "And with a little salt, don't overdo it." "Yes, I remember, Grandma," he answered, standing at the stove. "You eat, come on, while it's hot." He brought her a plate, sat down next to her. She ate slowly, groping for a fork. Sometimes she asked for help, to give a jacket or find socks. He looked away, but it didn't help. His body was reacting. He mumbled something unintelligible and went to the toilet. I closed the door and relieved myself. He always returned in silence, trying not to look at her face. But Olga Ivanovna noticed. She was old, but not stupid. I saw not with my eyes, but with my gut, how he was straining, how he was in a hurry to leave, how he was silent afterwards. She knew that he was young, that he needed more than this close life with her. And this knowledge gnawed at her from the inside. One evening, after he helped her wash, everything changed. "Artem," she began without raising her head, "I can see how hard it is for you." "Everything's fine," he muttered, wringing out a washcloth. "Don't make it up." "Don't lie," she said sharply. "Do you think I don't understand? A young guy, and you're sitting with an old blind woman, no friends, no girls. Are you suffering here?" He froze, feeling his face treacherously flooded with heat. "I'm not suffering," he replied, but his voice trembled. "You're not a stranger to me, I'm for you." "For me," she interrupted with a bitter laugh. "And himself. I can hear you running to the toilet. Do you think I'm deaf or something?" He swallowed, not knowing what to say. She's right, she knew everything. The silence was heavy, only drops from the faucet fell into the bathroom. "I'm sorry, Artemka," she suddenly said more gently. "It's my fault. You're living alone because of me." "It's not your fault." He sat on the edge of the tub, looking at the floor. "I chose it myself. Without you, I'm nothing at all." She reached out and felt his shoulder. Her fingers were cold, trembling. "My poor man," she whispered. "I feel sorry for you, young, but you don't see life." "I'm not sorry," he replied quietly, "as long as you were there." She paused, then sighed. He helped her up, brought her to the sofa. They lay down as always, under the same blanket. But that night she didn't turn to the wall as usual. She was lying on her back, breathing heavily. Artyom felt her warmth, heard her breathing. And suddenly she spoke. Quietly, almost in a whisper. "Artem, if you feel so bad, I don't want you to suffer." "What are you talking about?" He turned to her, frowning. She laughed, as if she was choosing her words. "I'm old, but I understand you need to." "Well, this. Well, you don't have any girls. It's better to be with me than somewhere with strangers and hanging around in corners." He froze in disbelief. My heart was pounding, my throat was dry. "What are you talking about, Grandma?" His voice broke. "Well, what's the big deal?" She turned to him, her voice firmer. "I wasn't blind before. I know how it is with guys. You're worried about me, and I am. I can help at least that much. But not strangers after all." He was silent, not knowing what to say. My thoughts were confused. She reached out, felt his palm, squeezed it tightly. "Don't be afraid," she said softly. "If you want, touch it, I'm not sorry." He swallowed, feeling the heat flood his entire body. His hand trembled, but he did not withdraw it. Slowly, almost without breathing, he touched her face. The skin was warm, soft. She didn't move, just breathed a little louder. He ran his hand down his neck, his body responded instantly. "Is that okay?" he asked hoarsely, not knowing why. "Fine," she replied quietly. "Do as you like." But he couldn't stand the tension, abruptly stood up, muttered "I'll be right back," and went to the toilet. Already familiar actions, he closed the door, feeling the shame of relief mingle in his chest. When I returned, she was lying on her back in silence. He lay down beside her, his heart still pounding. "Sleep, Artemka," she said at last, "the morning is coming soon." "Yeah," he said, looking at the ceiling. But something has changed since that day. The nights were different, she allowed him to touch her. But when he couldn't take it anymore, he touched her body, and then went to the toilet. It became their secret. Silent, awkward, but understandable to both. She pitied him, he accepted it. Well, because there was no other woman in his life. And the old sofa creaked under them, as if it knew more than they did. Another month has passed since then. Their life flowed in a strange rhythm. During the day, life, cooking, his studies, and part-time jobs. At night, a silent intimacy that did not go beyond touching. She pitied him, he accepted it, but both felt that the tension was growing. Artyom went to the toilet more and more often, came back with burning cheeks, and she lay in silence, as if not noticing. But she noticed, and it gnawed at her more than blindness. It was evening, cold and quiet. A fine rain was falling outside the window, drops were knocking on the windowsill. Artyom was sitting at the table, or reading a textbook, but his thoughts were somewhere far away. Olga Ivanovna was lying on the sofa, listening to the radio until it wheezed and fell silent. She coughed, turned to him. "Artem." Her voice was low, a little shaky. "Turn off the light. It's time to go to bed." He nodded, stood up, flipped the switch. The room was plunged into semi-darkness. Only the lantern outside the window cast yellow reflections on the ceiling. They lay down on the sofa, as always, under one blanket. He felt the warmth of her body, heard her breathing. Usually she turned away, but this time she stayed on her back, staring into the darkness with blind eyes. "Why aren't you sleeping?" she asked quietly after a minute. Just like that, he hesitated, couldn't sleep. She sighed, ran her hand over the blanket as if thinking. Then she spoke again, more slowly than usual. "I keep thinking, Artemka, you're young, but you live like an old man with me, no girls, no joy. Just me, and this sofa is squeaky." "Don't start that again," he muttered, but there was no anger in his voice. "I'm fine." "It's not normal," she snapped. "I can see how you're suffering. You touch me, you run around afterwards, but it's still not the same." He froze, feeling the heat running through his body. She was silent for a second, then turned a little closer to him. "Stop worrying like that," she said softly but firmly. "Let's do it in an adult way. I'll make you a man, as it should be. Better me than you alone all your life." His heart was pounding so hard that he heard a pounding in his ears. He swallowed in disbelief. "Granny? Are you serious?" The voice was hoarse. "Is it not serious?" She chuckled, but there was bitterness in her voice. "I'm old, blind, but not dead yet." And I understand what you need. Come on, Artemka, don't be afraid. He slowly moved closer, feeling the blanket rustle. And everything happened to them. She lay there in silence, not moving, until he pulled away. Then she turned on her back and closed her eyes. Well, she said softly, now you're a man. He was lying next to me, staring at the ceiling. Inside there was happiness, pure, hot, mixed with lust and joy. He knew a woman. The first one in my life. And even if it was her, old, blind, he didn't care. It was the best thing he had ever felt. He turned to her, smiling in the dark. I'm happy, Grandma, he said softly. Isn't it strange for you? Strange, she replied. The voice faltered. Well, all right, go to sleep. For her, it started out of pity, out of gratitude, for everything he did for her. But now, in the dark, with blind eyes, not seeing his face, she imagined something of her own. Youth long gone. A man who had not been around for decades. She was strangely ashamed that she had almost lost herself in this, but also pleased, unexpectedly for herself. And he lay there feeling joy, relief, and thought that this night had made him a man for real. From then on, the creaking of the sofa sounded like their common melody.